Feeling it. 3, 2, 1. What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Hear the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We are here live on a wonderful, beyond wonderful Wednesday. Fantastic night for a show for us tonight because we got fall camp beginning for the Florida State Seminoles, Tallahassee. It was a hot one for Dustin Lewis and the rest of the NoleGameday staff. At least it was in the morning, not in the afternoon. But the Florida State Seminoles and Mike Norvell hit the practice fields for the first time to begin their 2024 campaign. We're going to jump right into things immediately on this show tonight. We're going to jump into a quarterback conversation, some guys that impressed early on throughout the day. We're going to talk about incoming freshmen. We're going to talk some Elijah Moore. We're going to talk some other guys that we want to see develop this upcoming fall. Like Blake Nicholson, who has added some really significant size there to help in that linebacker room. There's a handful of things. We're going to talk about Mike Norvell and what he had to say after the first day, given his thoughts on the guys and their performances. So this is just full on day one, full camp. Thoughts, observations, everything. So thanks for hanging out with us this evening. With me is Austin Veazey, our lead basketball writer, and down below is Dustin Lewis, our editor-in-chief at NoleGameday.com. Gentlemen, how we doing? Football season is officially back.
Yeah, I think we can definitely say that it was a great Wednesday in Tallahassee with the Seminoles finally getting back on the field to begin the preseason. You know, it's been a long off season. Been waiting a while since we last got a chance to watch these guys compete in April, and to get a chance now a little bit earlier since they're gonna have that week 0 matchup. Florida State already out on the field here in late July, and I mean we're gonna hit the ground running. 8 practices coming in the next 10 days, and it's not gonna slow down.
Yeah, Dustin gets to have fun at practices. I have to do with ACC Media Day and all of that nonsense. So I think I'm much.
You didn't have fun at ACC Media Days?
Not exactly, but at least I get an all-ACC vote, which y'all don't have.
Okay. Oh, damn! Now, how long is that vote gonna stay applicable to use?
I mean, I already used it, so
hopefully. Who'd you vote for? What did you vote?
You get awards for preseason player of the year. You get to vote on all ACC team and predicted order of finish.
Order to finish?
Yeah, so you rank all the ACC teams 1 through 17.
Gotcha. So what'd you vote?
What'd you vote?
What'd you pick?
Being secretive?
I can pull it up. I can grab my piece of paper if you give me a second.
Nah. We don't care too much.
I did have FSU winning the ACC.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember all the FSU guys I had on all ACC team. I know I had Darius Washington, Patrick Payton, Josh Farmer, AZ Thomas, Shaheem Brown. From there, I think that's it. I can't remember if I had a 6th or not, but I think it was those 5.
Yeah, I was going to say, we put out a piece, right, D-Lou? And no Seminole was voted to get the ACC Player of the Year?
No, they weren't even on the ballot, so you couldn't even vote for an FSU player.
You couldn't even vote for them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But there were 4 Virginia Tech players.
Virginia Tech just comes out of nowhere, huh?
Which I bet you can't even name 4 Virginia Tech players right now.
Absolutely not. I couldn't name one in the last 3 years. So nothing changes this year for me.
I was going through the ballot 4 Virginia Tech players, or what are we doing here?
I got drones after that. Nothing.
Yeah, it was drones, the running back Basil Tootin, a DB I've never heard of, and then that defensive tackle that has the hyphenated name that I already forgot his name.
Awesome. Well, we're not going to talk Virginia Tech here. I'll go ahead and tell you guys right now. We're going to talk Florida State and fall camp day 1, baby. Just like Kendall here from YouTube saying, got about practically a month until kickoff in Ireland, Florida State taking on Georgia Tech. So we're right into it. I just started training camp here with the Buccaneers. It feels good to be back out there on the practice fields. It was a really nice break. It was a good spring. It was a good summer, but it just feels good to be back into the groove, actually talking what's happening on the field and not talking about what Jim Phillips, an ACC commissioner, and whatever kind of SEC Big Ten talk is going on. I don't care. what I care about is what's happening right now out there on those practice fields. And there's going to be a lot of those like Dustin just talked about. So make sure you're tuned in to hear the Spear on a weekly basis. As always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, drop some comments, drop a like, subscribe so you get notified every time we release a new video and when we go live for you guys. But we're going to talk some first day of camp. We're going to go and jump into that right now to begin this show, and that's practically going to be all of it. Austin's going to give us some basketball updates at the very end. But D-Lou, you were there. Tommy was there. Dylan was there. Jackson was also there, I do believe. He had a kind of a hiccup on trying to get in, but he did make it in. So we had a full team practically out there on the field. Just overall, just the vibe coming in. You got to see Mike Norvell walking through as usual, probably saying that big, heavy good morning to everybody. But what was just kind of the overall vibe with watching some of these guys come in? Did some of these dudes look a little bit bigger? Were some of these guys putting in some work this offseason, like we saw with Azare Thomas? A lot of highlights from, Malik Benson and also DJU working out with these guys. Anybody kind of look a little different coming in? And what was the vibe like?
Yeah, I think just overall, watching these guys walk into the first practice of the preseason, the first thing you notice is really that size. I mean, from top to bottom, this looks like a really strong roster. I mean, filled with guys who are built to play, at the top against top FBS level competition. I mean, Florida State's done a really good job of continuing to fill out depth and adding talent over the last couple of years to, really make this a championship contender from top to bottom. So, yeah, there have definitely been some guys across the whole roster. I mean, guys who have been at Florida State for a year, or maybe even some who have been here longer, who have done some really good work reshaping their bodies this offseason. The first couple of guys that come to mind, I think we're going to talk about them a little bit later in the show, but Hakeem Williams, up to 215 pounds, and he's carrying that extremely well. We saw Roydell Williams come in, slim down a little bit, going from 225 in the spring to 215, and I think he's handling that extremely well. He's got a very thick lower body, and I think him at 215 pounds, that probably suits him. Blake Nicholson has put on some extra size as well. And then, there's some guys across the roster who we'll continue to talk about. But, there was a lot of excitement for these guys, a ton of new players at Florida State preparing for this 2024 season, walking onto the field. They're pretty hyped up, a lot of chatter, and ready to go in there and get after it. And, I think from the beginning to the end of the practice, whether it was going through the drills or, offense versus defense, things like that. It didn't look like anyone was overwhelmed with what they were going through. These guys hit the ground running on Wednesday.
We love a good thick bottom, don't you, Dustin?
Yeah.
You liked it. You like that. We like a good base at the bottom. That means Coach Storms is putting in some work with some of these guys. But yeah, you're looking at Earl Little Jr. walking in here right now, having a battle there for that nickel position. Another guy, you were talking about size, Elijah Moore. What did he look like to you in person? D-Lou, he used to interview this kid whenever he was going through his recruitment. But now, after, we heard from him in his newcomer press conference and his introductory one, what does it look like now that he's added on this amount of pounds and he's still trying to get to 215?
He already had some good size on him, dating back to his high school recruitment and ahead of his senior season last summer, whenever he had his official visit to FSU and committed shortly thereafter. But it seems like he's continued to make strides on that frame over the last year. And he looks like a college ready receiver walking here into practice. You can kind of see it for yourselves. I thought he looked the part, heading into the practice field. And I'm like, all right, well, let's see what this kid can do today during his first chance to experience college level competition. Obviously Elijah Moore just got here in the summer, wasn't able to go through spring practice and the tour of duty and things like some of the other freshmen were able to do to get acclimated to Florida State. He's entering this practice with Florida State, preparing for the season, and wanting to go out there and compete, show what he can do. Man, I was really impressed. There were a couple of big plays. I would definitely call him one of the standouts of the day.
Speaking of some big dudes, though, you took a video of this, and I was looking at this while at the Bucs training camp. These are monsters. And VZ, you were there at ACC Media Days, and the biggest question mark for us throughout, I'd say, since postseason last year and going through the spring is Joshua Farmer's health status. You want this cat to be 105% going into this season because of, first off, the depth that you're working with, but also to the presence that he brings on that interior defensive line to get to the backfield of opposing offenses. But I'm sorry. I know Daryl Jackson stands out to you. He's a massive dude, but Farmer just looks different to me, guys. And he said that he feels like he's at his best shape. VZ, that's what he told y'all up there in Charlotte.
Yeah, he said he's been fully healthy for about a month now. Played last season at about 307. He's down he played last season at 316. He's at 307 right now. Wants to get down to 302 or 303 for the season.
Woo!
He looks like he's in great shape. He looks like his get off is going to be faster than ever on the line of scrimmage. And he's playing next to Darrell Jackson, who's already very fast getting off the line. So those two are going to be a handful on the inside.
Yeah, like you said, he looks like he's in really good shape. And then you look over at Darrell Jackson, you're like, man, he might even look a little bit better. Those are two really big monsters who are going to be a force in the interior of the defense. And, just really cool to see them coming out together after all that they've went through, playing together at the high school level, both unheralded recruits at the time, and, obviously have developed into this over the last couple of years. Jackson starting his career at Maryland, transferring to Miami for a season, and then coming to Florida State to reunite with Farmer, his high school teammate. And, we saw what they went through last year. Jackson being held out due to the eligibility waivers and things like that, rules that aren't even applicable at this point, which is kind of crazy. And then Farmer dealing with some of those injury woes throughout the second half of the season. They're both going into this so-called money year, and it looks like they're both ready to make an impact. And I bet it's got to feel even better to have, your brother next to you.
Jackson looks like a blocking tight end in this. He doesn't even look like a defensive tackle.
He looks slimmer than Farmer here, and I would say just like a year ago it was kind of opposite there. But Farmer, he's still going to shed off some weight here and some fat, I guess. But these guys are just jacked. And I think about too, it is their money year. You look at what Braden Fisk, he played some good games near the latter half of the season, definitely in the postseason for Florida State. This man gets drafted early in the NFL draft. That's got to be so motivating for these guys. And, just looking at what Odell Higgins has been able to do throughout his career at Florida State, putting guys in the league and having long extended careers as well. These two have a very high chance of doing the same here in this year's upcoming draft. They just got to show it on the field and show the consistency. And I think the tandem here is going to be super, super fun to watch starting week 0 in Dublin.
Absolutely. And just going back real quick to Austin's point of Darrell Jackson looking like a tight end. What's kind of funny is he was one of the guys to join the pre-practice race today. And there were a couple of other Seminoles as well. I think probably 6 or 7 guys all running with Mike Norvell. But the two who I saw at the front as far as defensive linemen who beat Mike Norvell today on the first day of fall camp, Darrell Jackson and Patrick Payton.
Wow. Isn't that wild? Isn't that crazy? We need to get a good video of those two guys running down. There's never enough videos of Mike Norvell racing, but just specifically though, I need a good pinched in zoom shot so we can get that on the TikToks and get it on the reels. These guys are super freaks, and I'm just more excited to see the pads on. The scary part is they look huge here, like monsters, but they don't even have pads on. They're in shorts and some jerseys here, practically in t-shirts. So wait till the pads come on. D-Lou, we need you. We need the videos, please. I want to go over to Heike Williams because we were talking about him earlier, but I think we saw a massive jump going from this last spring in size and just working on his physical build. But you can just tell here too, Heike has stuck with Coach Storms this offseason and this summer and has really dialed into the strength and conditioning room with Coach Storms. He's at 215. You got here. Yeah. And you talk about put on some base. Yeah, he's put on some weight down and the legs as well. That's something that, I think a lot of wide receivers should do. It just helps that strength and being able to put down some good routes in route running.
And what's crazy is I think he got to Florida State around that 215-pound mark, but he was still kind of out of shape. And struggling during the tour of duty at times, early on in some of those first spring practices last year, whenever he first arrived at Florida State. So to see him go down in weight and then reshape his body, build back up to that 215 pound mark, but his body looks a lot different now than it did when he was coming out of high school. I mean, what a job, not only with Hakeem Williams and his work ethic to, go out there and really try to change his body, but also Josh Storms and that whole strength staff working with him, because I mean, that's a hard process, to go down and then build back up. And not only with Hakeem, we've seen it with a couple of other guys this offseason as well. And, as I said earlier in the show, I think it's paying off because top to bottom, I mean, this roster looks ready to compete.
Looking at a few more things here. Waddell was leading the running back room coming into practice.
Look at those thighs.
The listeners are going to start getting a little freaked out here if we keep on talking about, but it's something in football that you got to have some strong legs, man.
His thighs and hammies. I mean, that's where it seems like all the weight is.
And we're going to talk about this kid in a second. Not really a kid anymore. This is a very well experienced linebacker on the SEC side. But Cam Riley, speaking of size, just going off the first day looking at him, what he looked like to you. Mike Norvell was talking about him and just pointed out his smarts and what he's going to bring experience-wise to that linebacker room. And they really got to try to figure out, we've talked about it on here when we're previewing the linebacker room, they got to figure out where to put him at. There's going to be a lot of competition here to match next to DJ Lundy. But first thoughts on what you saw from the SEC transfer linebacker from Auburn.
He was someone that I really wanted to get a look at today, just because, we've been talking about the size that he was listed at Auburn a year ago, 6'5", 245 pounds. And we were wondering, how's that going to translate to Florida State with him playing linebacker in this 4-2-5 scheme. And coming out today, I don't know if he's quite 6'5". I think he's more in that 6'4" range, but he's definitely trimmed up some. I think on the roster right now, he's listed around 237 or somewhere in that range. So, I mean, as you can kind of see in this clip, he definitely looks like he has the frame of a linebacker rather than, a defensive end, which there were some rumblings that, maybe he would play that role at Auburn if he was to stick around for the 2024 season. But it looks like he's prepared to play linebacker. And, I thought he was moving around pretty well today for the most part in his first practice at Florida State.
Well, I say we start jumping into some practice stuff here because, we've got quite a bit to talk about, and we're going to have a lot to talk about the next couple of weeks. But we got to get the overreactions in. We got to get the first thoughts. We got to see who's going to be the starter, who's going to be the star of the 2024 season. Let's just get everything out right now. But let's start off with the quarterbacks, D-Lou, and we can just jump over just everything about them. We'll start off with DJ, and we'll go down to Brock Lynn, and we'll go over to Luke. But just overall, what do you see from these quarterbacks? I was reading your observations piece, and it seemed like it was kind of not the greatest day from the quarterbacks. Maybe more of, had to get the rust off a little bit. That specifically going over to DJ here and trying to get that chemistry back going with wide receivers. Maybe some timing was off here. Maybe he needs to work on the quickness and getting the ball out. But overall, what did you see from DJ and his first day of fall camp for Florida State?
I think you said it pretty well, kind of shaking off the rust and getting back into the swing of things. In my opinion, it wasn't DJ's sharpest practice. There were definitely, dating back to the spring, some better days that he had. But, that's just, it is what it is. Like Logan said, in one-on-ones, I think there was a little bit of some timing issues with the wide receivers. And of course, we don't have the headset on. We don't know if that's the receiver running the wrong route or DJ, missing the throw. We're not keen on all of those things, but I mean, there were a couple of plays that just weren't quite in sync in that one-on-one session. But I thought he started to get better as things went along. And when he does get into a rhythm, I mean, it's obvious that velocity, that strong arm that DJ has. I mean, that's what they brought him here to do, is really stretch that field vertically. And Florida State, I mean, they've got the playmakers to do it when everything is working well. And I mean, we did get to see him connect on a couple of nice plays. He actually had one that was dropped by Kyle Morlock that he put in, I mean, a really good spot over his shoulder. He couldn't have asked for a better throw. Came back and connected with Morlock twice in 7-on-7, one where he hit him over the middle in a good spot. Morlock also had a great route on the play to kind of create some space on DeMarco Ward, and it looked like that could have turned into a potential touchdown in a game. But I just thought overall, he needs to be a little bit quicker with his decision making. Sometimes things just get a little clunky there in team drills, and I mean, it all comes with it. He's still learning this offense. He's still got some steps to make ahead of the 2024 season. And really, you just want to see him continue to grow, get that chemistry down with the playmakers over the next couple of weeks, and just start to become more consistent day by day. I think DJ would want to say that he wants this to be his worst day of the preseason. I mean, just continue to get better and better from here, and we'll see what he's able to do.
I feel like naturally defenses right off the bat, definitely when you're in practically shirts and shorts, defense usually dominates the first couple of practices. And once the pads come on, you got an offensive line that has pads, can actually put your hands on and actually make some blocks on the defensive line and the edge rushers. Things help the quarterback quite a bit in that regard. But, there was some signs that I saw in the one practice I was there where kind of holding the ball a little too long. And that was just one practice I saw, but you just don't want to see this thing become repetitive. And like you just said, you got to, hope DJ's like, yeah, this is not my best practice. Let's hope that's my last one. And we grow from that and we learn. And, there's not much of a concern. It's just if it continues to repeat like that, then, this allows for another guy, which we're about to talk about, for Brock Glenn to really compete here. And I'm interested to see, how Brock can take a hold of this, understand, hey, things aren't maybe set in stone, but, DJ ran with a lot with the ones and fall camp there after Brock Glenn got his time. And, it's just something that we're going to continue to observe. And, it's also got to look at the wide receiver room too. It kind of had its ups and downs in the spring camp as well.
Mm-hmm.
So not fully predicating this on the quarterback play as well, but it just seems like just starting off today, Brock Glenn had a better day. But let's jump over to Brock Glenn. What stood out to you from him? I was reading your observations. It seemed like he was a lot more comfortable, was reading the defense a little bit better too, and was able to get the offense moving smoothly down the field whenever he got in there.
Yeah, I just thought he was poised and under control. And I mean, that's pretty much what we've seen from Brock Glenn since he arrived at Florida State. I mean, even when he first got here, the spring of his true freshman year, it seemed like he was a little bit ahead of the game as far as being able to process everything mentally. And then obviously thrust into the fire late in that 2023 season where he had to play in the ACC championship and in the Orange Bowl against Georgia. And, he struggled in those games. And, as much as everyone wants to say, put that behind you, that's something that I think can weigh on a player moving forward. And, they got to shake back and get that confidence back. And there were some times in the spring I thought, it was up and down from Brock Glenn, good days and bad days. And today I just thought, he was decisive. He knew what he wanted to do. And, he knew his read as soon as the ball was snapped, and also was putting some accurate passes together. There was actually a sequence here in one-on-ones where, I mean, he just was on the money on 4 consecutive throws, laid one over the shoulder to Kentron near the sideline, came back with a similar throw to Jalen Lucas on the next play. Then he hit Deuce Spann with a dart over the middle that fell to the receiver's hands and came back and was able to find a diving Jaylen Brown over the middle. So, I mean, a nice little sequence there. And his best throw of the day, I mean, going into team drills, defense was getting some pressure, bringing it towards him. He was able to recognize the pressure, move in the pocket to evade it, and then, I mean, deliver a rocket to Hakeem down the middle of the field to create a big play. And that was something that Norvell kind of complimented him on after practice, his ability to work the middle of the field, which, I mean, he acknowledged can be a little bit dangerous at times, but Brock is confident enough, and at least today he was accurate enough to hit those passes. But, I mean, yeah, I was definitely impressed with the way that he was running the offense, kind of commanding things. And even on some of the plays where everything didn't go right, like if he overthrew a receiver or the receiver wasn't able to come down with the football, I mean, Brock was going right over there, chopping it up with the guy, trying to get back on the same page, giving him a dap. He was doing his part on and off the field.
Yeah, Mike Norvell talking about Brock Glenn said he really liked the progressions and the reads that he had, the looks, and he's continuing to build that confidence. So definitely some nice strides there that we've seen from him from spring into the summer, now going into fall camp itself. And he got thrown into some crazy, crazy stuff going. It reminds me kind of what James Blackman had to deal with in his career at FSU. Brock Glenn's in that same boat. But for him now, I think he sees that he's got the strong potential. You got to remember this kid was highly recruited from Ohio State, flipped over to Florida State. Florida State really wanted him in this class. And now he's here. He had some playing time last year. Just something to closely watch, I think, in this camp, because he had some strong days too in the spring. Dustin, you were telling us here on Hear the Spear as well. So this isn't much of like a crazy shock to anyone, but interested to see how this progresses into the rest of fall camp.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if we have a quarterback battle. Obviously Mike Norvell hasn't named a starter at this time. And Brock, we talked about it last week, kind of previewing the offense and that depth chart, but Brock missed some practice time there during the second half of the spring, and obviously the showcase as well, while dealing with an injury that might have set him back a little bit. But it seems like he's ready to come out swinging here in the preseason to take a shot at that starting job, and we'll see how everything continues to progress over the next couple of weeks.
And just going real quick on Luke Kromenhoek here, true freshman. What's the reasoning for that right there? You like what you saw from him?
He's gonna.
To me, it just seems like he's just got the natural ability. Like, not a lot of quarterbacks, not a lot of players have that when they come in as a true freshman. It's just something natural. Yeah, it's going to take time. You got to read the defenses, got to do your homework, got to, get down on the film. It's more of just building the experience on the practice level. God, you would like no rush, but definitely when you get to the game level, you gain so much more experience like Brock Glenn did. But natural ability, Luke Kromenhoek has it.
He's got it. I mean, he's got an extremely high ceiling. And, one thing that's important to remember whenever we're discussing Luke is he only started for 2 years at the high school level. I mean, he's still relatively early into this development as a starting quarterback. And in this short period of time, he developed into one of the top prospects in the country. So, I mean, Florida State obviously believes that his best football is ahead of him and that he's not even close to being the player that he's going to be in, 2 years, 3 years from right now. And clearly, DJ, Brock, they've got the experience, the upper hand and experience at this time. And Luke, going out there just continuing to try and grow. I think, that's going to be the goal for this season. But I mean, man, there is some serious potential with this kid, especially when he gets into a rhythm. I mean, he just starts slinging it all around the yard. That's kind of how I put it in the practice observation article today. During 7-on-7 team drills, it just seemed like he was really confident and able to make those reads. I think that's a positive sign, because there were some points, you go back to the spring where he was getting introduced to the system and just beginning his college career. It was taking him some time to read the defense and get the ball out. I thought it was coming out a lot quicker today. And I mean, he was getting it to his playmakers more often than not. Hit a couple of walk-ons for some touchdowns, and, had some connections with Elijah Moore as well. One that ended up in a touchdown late in practice, where Moore it was a short pass that he connected with Moore, who then put a move and, I mean, just exploded up the sideline. And you had Mike Norvell running right alongside the true freshman. I couldn't tell if he was celebrating with him or offering a tip for improvement on his next rep or what, but he was right there. Now, I will say,
held on and he finished the play.
He finished the play.
Big one for Mike.
And Norvell did have about a 30-yard head start. So, I mean, it's not like he caught up with him, but they were able to meet in the end zone and figure that out. But yeah, I really like what Luke's doing. And, it seems like he's making progress in the right direction under Mike Norvell and Tony Tokars. He was also a quarterback who wasn't able to participate during some of those second half of the spring practices due to a minor injury. But I mean, now he's back fully in the swing of things, and just seems like he's going to continue on this up and up. And man, I'm really excited to see what he could potentially become.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I am too as well. Let's jump over. Let's stay on the offensive side of the ball. Let's jump over to Lawrence Toafili, because you added some comments here and your practice observations. But once again, I feel like this happens every spring and fall camp. But Lawrence Toafili has added some more size. He really looks like he's added some more size. Definitely probably put on some good muscle here. But also, too, he was all over the field in a lot of different ways for the quarterbacks. What do you see from him? And, I am wondering, just going from spring and fall camp, has anything changed from him and just the way that Florida State is utilizing him? I know you can't go into deep detail of that because now you have Rodell Williams in there. I'm just wondering how, what kind of plays or what is Mike Norvell kind of gadgeting around with Lawrence Toa Philly, because now you got bringing another back that's more of a pure purpose back with Rodell Williams. Just kind of trying to understand how Florida State's going to utilize one of their biggest playmakers. Lawrence Toa Philly has been one of Florida State's biggest playmakers the last couple of seasons.
Well, I will say the size is legitimate for sure. I mean, getting a chance to speak to him after practice today, I mean, you can just tell by the arms that he's definitely added on some strength ahead of his final year in Tallahassee. I mean, he even said as much in the interview, said it's better being bigger because, he's going against such big guys on the fields. I mean, the more size that he can have, hopefully he can survive some of those hits that he's going to take this upcoming season. But I mean, Florida State, pretty par for the course, I would say, with utilizing LT today. I mean, getting to see him in the backfield, obviously, and then catching some passes as well, getting involved in the passing game. But I feel like he's moving extremely well. I mean, obviously, he's been here forever. He's confident. He knows the system like the back of his hand. And he's taking it to the point where, he's offering tips and advice and always talking to the other running backs on the team. I mean, these guys, and we've talked about it before on this podcast, they really operate as a unit. And I mean, he is the leader of that unit, kind of the captain of the running backs, if you will, with all the experience that he's had at Florida State. I mean, he's seen it all, and now he's getting a chance to kind of pass that down. But, he's excited to work in that tandem with Roydell and Jalen Lucas and Holmes and all of those guys as well. So I think this running back room, it's going to be really good for Florida State. They're going to distribute it around a little bit. But I do feel like we're going to see a good focus on LT this upcoming season. I feel like, LT and Roydell are your 1A, 1B in that running back rotation, probably going to soak up the majority of snaps.
Mm-hmm. There's just so much talent in that room.
So
right?
On that point, real quick, I tweeted out from ACC Media Day how there was no FSU players in the ballot like we talked about. And someone in my replies, I don't know who, I forgot at this point, said they were surprised Toa Philly wasn't in there because he expects 1,300 yards and double-digit touchdowns from him. I'm just like, we sure about that? We love Toa Philly. Toa Philly is awesome. But as Dustin just mentioned, this is a running back room that's going to split a lot of carries, not just between these two, but Kazay Holmes as well. Jalen Lucas is going to get in there. 1,300 yards is a lot.
Mm-hmm. That'd be more than Trey Benson last season.
But
almost reaching that 1,000-yard mark. But yeah, definitely some high confidence there for LT. It's just maybe all-purpose yards for sure, and the way that they try to use them. I mean, that's what I'm wondering.
Even then, that's more than his last 2 years combined all-purpose yards. It's a lot of yards.
1,300's a lot.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot. He'd have to have a freak season for sure. But yeah, with Roydell coming in, it's going to limit a lot of those yards. But that's never been a problem for Mike Norvell's offense, nor that running back room under Coach Yak. They know it's a revolving door sometimes week to week, just depending on their game plan. So, but yeah, it's good to hear about LT here. I think we're going to hear a lot about him. Didn't hear a whole ton, I would say, during the spring. It's just, he's just been a consistent kind of guy for Florida State until those pads come on, and then you don't really get to see much because, they're tapping each other up. They're not going to do a full tackle and have Cam Riley coming right down on Lawrence Toa Philly up the middle. But, I'm just interested to see how Lawrence Toa Philly is going to be utilized this upcoming season with Roydell Williams coming in, the Alabama transfer. Darren Williamson, Dustin, you noted in here maybe being the most consistent wide receiver out of the day for the Florida State Seminoles. Complete veteran, has been in this offense for, I feel like, a very, very, very long time. Mike Norvell has always thought very highly of this young man just because of his athleticism, and we've seen him make so many plays, man. Back when I was in Tallahassee, he would be a complete red zone threat and make some crazy plays for Ron Dugans. But seemed to be, and this makes sense for being one of the most experienced wide receivers here, also to Kentron, also noted in the observations. But any other wide receivers, and you can feel free to jump into Darion. But what would that wide receiver room look like overall?
Yeah, I would say if we're talking most consistent on the day, I think you got to put Darion, Kentron, and Hakeem up there near the top. I mean, those three all came out and had a really good first practice. Darion in particular, getting into a rhythm during 7-on-7 and having multiple connections from Brock Glenn, including a really impressive snag where, I mean, he's kind of working over the middle. And I mean, the ball was slightly behind him, slightly off target. And Darion was able to reach over, snag it with two hands while not breaking stride to turn that into a little bit of a decent gain. So, I mean, certainly an encouraging sign from a redshirt senior who's played a lot of football at Florida State and obviously is talented, but has dealt with some injury setbacks throughout his time with the Seminoles. And I mean, you can kind of say the same thing with Kentron. Injuries kind of robbed him of that 2023 campaign last year where we thought he had the potential to be a breakout at FSU and didn't bounce back necessarily particularly strong during the spring. And this is his chance to really secure a starting job. And we talked about it last week while previewing the offense. We think it's Hakeem and Kentron competing for one of those starting spots. And they both came out and had really good days for the most part. This honestly, it might have been one of Hakeem's better practices going into his second year at Florida State. When you think about what he was able to do this past spring and adding today in.
I noted in here Elijah Moore. I don't know if you also noted on this earlier. I think this was a different play, but this one right here, the one-on-one, I want to hear about this. A one-on-one over the middle, showing off his extension and range. That's what I look at whenever I saw him walking into practice. His athletic ability and his long arms can be something that Florida State was utilizing a lot. Go back to like Johnny Wilson, but obviously different size and maybe height there, but still this guy has a ton of range, and Florida State utilized that a lot in their wide receiver room the last couple of seasons. But Elijah Moore, really nice snag, one-on-one over the middle.
Yeah, he's not quite 6'7", but I mean 6'4", long arms. I mean, I think that wingspan's legit. I'd like to get the number on that eventually. But yeah, I mean, it was just a route. I think he was lined up against Ricky Knight or I think a freshman cornerback, and it was kind of a route over the middle. Ball was a little bit high, so he decided to leap into the air and snag it. I mean, you just got to see all of that frame in the air. I mean, he's just very polished, very under control for someone who's still early in his career. I mean, we all heard that newcomer press conference. I mean, Elijah Moore, he feels like he can come in here and make an impact on day one. For Florida State with Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman no longer on the roster. And, I don't know if that's going to be possible yet, but with what we saw today, I mean, if he can continue to string those type of days together, he'll have a chance to get into that rotation sooner rather than later.
How'd the tight end room look? Because we have been giving it a hard time on here. We have, but I was actually talking with one of my friends here that on the radio station covers the Buccaneers, and actually went to school with Kyle Morlock, and told him, we wanted to see a bigger progression in spring, maybe a bigger jump there from him. Did we see anything different? And it's only one day, and we're doing our overreactions on here. Enjoyed, everybody. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and like the video. But did we see a big jump at all, D-Lou, from Kyle Morlock in his first day? Anything different from the spring? Any kind of confidence? I don't know.
Well, look, I mean, the biggest thing with Kyle Morlock is we know he can get out there and catch some passes. And I mean, be somewhat productive in that passing game. The real jump that we need to see during the preseason is in the blocking game and, helping open up holes for some of these running backs to, help this offense be successful. Not really going to see a whole lot, I don't think, until the pads get put on. I mean, that's when we'll get a better idea of where Kyle Morlock's at in that facet. But as far as being a receiving threat, I mean, he was definitely someone that popped up throughout the day. I noted that pass earlier where he was able to get open in one-on-ones. DJ had a really good throw that came over the shoulder, bounced off his hands. But he responded with that, had that touchdown play I was talking about in 7-on-7 where he was able to get open over the middle on DeMarco Ward. That was a play where he actually was able to create some legit separation on that route. So, I mean, that was encouraging, and had another similar play, also catching one over the middle while matched up with a linebacker. On that one, Omar Graham Jr. fell down, which kind of allowed Kyle to get open. But I mean, definitely popping up a little bit more today than at some points in the spring. So, that's huge for FSU. They need him to be the dude in the tight end room. And outside of that, as far as returning guys on the roster, guys that have been here at Florida State, I didn't see a whole ton today.
Yeah.
I will say Amari Williams, true freshman, just got to FSU this summer, youngest player on the roster, reclassified from the 2025 class to sign with FSU in this 2024 class. We thought he was going to be a defensive end. Seems like Florida State kind of experimenting there a little bit. He talked about it in his press conference last week that he's going to be playing some tight end, and going into his first day in Garnet and Gold, he came out in white to participate with the offense, and he was working with that tight end room. And there are a couple plays, where he was able to get some space and make an impact in the passing game. One out on the sideline where he had kind of a leaping grab where he pulled in the pass as he fell to the ground and went out of bounds. Then he had another one where, Luke Kromenhoek put an absolute dime down the middle, hit him in stride where he was able to create some space. So I thought that was pretty cool. To see a guy who is supposed to be going into his senior season of high school come out in his first practice at Florida State and make a couple of plays.
Mm-hmm. Anything else offensively here? Like, I want to talk offensive line, and it's just up to you on who we can say who's starting here and there and whatnot. I want to mention though, Robert Scott.
We can't say any of that.
I can't say what he said in the interview.
Well,
we put an article out on it.
We can't say who's starting.
Yeah.
We can talk about Robert
Scott.
Yeah,
no. I was just going to see if you want to test the waters a little bit. Come on, give the fans what they want here. Let's give the starting lineup here on Here the Spear. Hit the subscribe button. No, but I was going to say Mike Norvell gave an update on Robert Scott, veteran tackle for Florida State, said that he had a great summer. They're rehabbing him in the right way. Don't want to rush anything. I think that's obviously the smart way for him, but that's a good sign though, and hopefully we'll see maybe he gets some participation later on in fall camp, see what happens there. But Florida State feels very strong in what they have at the tackle position as well. What do you say, Dustin?
I was going to say, I don't think Robert Scott is injured right now. I think Norvell was just kind of talking about him making his way back from where he was at in the spring, because obviously he wasn't able to do much back in March and April. I think as of now, he's a full participant for Florida State. It sounds like everything went very well over the summer. Norvell's liking the way that he's moving, and he was out there participating today. I hope I can say that. As far as I know, he is not part of the.
You don't get to go to practice tomorrow morning. Dustin just got his credential ripped away.
As far as I know, I can talk about it. But Robert Scott, we're gonna see what he's able to do. Limited for much of that 2023 season. Just feels like the injury bug. It's bitten him time and time again. And when he is out there, he's an all ACC talent, and he's been a dependable piece for Florida State when he is on the field. Someone who's been a very good offensive lineman for the Seminoles. He just needs to be out there, and we're going to see kind of the process, because I think they got to do kind of the same thing with Maurice Smith and some of these other guys on the roster who have just played a lot of football in their careers. Offensive line, it's a very physical position, and those bumps and bruises they add up over the years. So you've got to have a plan for these guys during the preseason to obviously test them, stress them out a little bit, but not to the point where you're already lagging going into the season.
I'm going to tell you right now, they're about to go through hell with what we just saw Daryl Jackson and Joshua Farmer walking into practice. So let's ease up on them a little bit and give them a nice, easy time before they get to have to deal with that every day at practice. But iron sharpens iron. I want to go over to a question here in the chat from CW. Great question here. Elaborate on Malik Benson's "Does it look like to you in person?" D-Lou. I only got to see a couple flashes. I saw Malik Benson. I didn't really get to see a whole lot of Jalen Lucas. But I saw Malik Benson and a deep post coming from DJ with his arm. Super fun to watch. Hit him right there in stride for a touchdown. Was just running just by himself for a route. Super, super, super fast. And it just just correlates with what we're seeing in the new EA game that came out. But Malik Benson is an absolute freak of nature with speed. But it really is, man. You were talking about him on here and previewing it, and then I got onto the practice field and saw him in the IPF, and I was like, holy shit, this dude is fast, really fast. And it reminds me of what Florida State used to have with Ontario Wilson. But what does it look like to you in person, D-Lou?
It looks fast. It looks really fast. But they're two really explosive guys. I mean, just jet burners whenever they're able to get out into the open space. I think Jalen might be the fastest player on the roster out of anyone. And then Malik Benson, I mean, you're probably putting in that top 5 range, maybe top 3, but definitely in that top 5 range. I mean, they're both two guys that have elite speed. You let them into the open field, I mean, they're going to be gone. There have been some plays from Jalen Lucas. We're going to see it throughout the preseason, but going back to the spring where you give him an inch, he takes a mile. I mean, he's like a blur. He's going to be really fun to watch, I think, this season for the Seminoles. And same thing with Malik Benson. Good to see him out there again. Obviously suffered that injury during the spring showcase, which Mike Norvell talked about, said he didn't expect it to, linger much into FSU summer workouts, and doesn't seem like it did. He had a pretty solid day as well.
We ready to go over to defense? Because I am. I really want to go over to defense unless there's anything else, because we're going to be doing a lot of these.
We are
doing a lot of these. So we don't need to go into full extensive, what's the 3 deep looking like and the right guard room. I think we're ready to go defense. I need to go defense. We're heading defense, everybody.
All right.
Shaheem Brown, number 1. Shaheem Brown, number 1, baby. Number 1, one of my favorite players on this roster. I think one of the most talented, just naturally gifted, very smart, puts himself in the right spots, and it sure seems like today he's been doing a really good job of that during this offseason. Said he was operating really well on the defensive side, D-Lou, making some smart decisions, putting himself in the right spots. It seemed like all throughout the day. We've seen that in games as well, but this is a massive upcoming season for Shaheem Brown. This is his defense, and he's turned into a leadership. He's turned into a vocal guy. But what to you stood out for you to put him at the top of the defensive observations? I feel like whenever you're putting guys in observations, the top guys are probably the ones that have impressed you the most in offense, defense, special teams. So Shaheem Brown's at the top here. What stood out to you from this talented safety?
Just really like the way that he was operating out there in the back end today. It wasn't that long ago when he was an up and comer, and now you look and flash forward to this 2024 season, and he's kind of the Riley veteran in that safety room, and a guy who's developed into a leader at Florida State. And I think a lot of that, transpired with him getting a chance to play with Jamie Robinson and Akeem Dent, and really growing quickly around those guys and making a huge impact last year during his first season as a full-time starter at Florida State. I think he's going to be even better this season. Just seems like he's really settled into that defense. Kind of feels like he's one of the key pieces to the way that everything is operating out there, working to get guys in the right position pre-snap, communicating with other DBs off the field, constantly talking to guys on the sideline, engaged. If he's not in the play, he's watching, and if he sees something where someone's not in the right spot, he's yelling from the sideline. I think you're just seeing everything you want to see from Shaheem Brown on and off the field. He's realized those athletic traits that he had coming out of high school, and a guy who was an underrated recruit at the prep level, now going to be one of Florida State's top players on this entire roster. And I think there's still another level for him to hit. So we'll see if he's able to do that over these next couple of weeks. But a really, really good day of watching him operate.
I want to stick in that defensive back room, and we're going to stay over there at safety. But Marlon Cooper, former FSU safety, cornerback mix hybrid in there, and then goes over to play for Deion Sanders for a season. Now comes back and transfers back to Florida State, and he's playing for Coach Surtain. He's competing there with Hussey, Devontae Brown for that starting spot. What did you see from Marlon Cooper? Because I think a lot of us, definitely on this show, and some FSU fans, think very highly of this young man. What did you see from him in action for fall camp?
Yeah, for me, I just wanted to see where Florida State was actually going to utilize him because we've kind of talked about it. He's got experience at corner, he's got experience at safety. Where is he going to fit in whenever he does get back to Tallahassee? And today he trotted out there at safety, and it seems like he's going to be competing alongside Devontae Brown, um, and Conrad Hussey for that starting job. But I feel like he's changed his body since we last saw him at Florida State. Has definitely put on some size. Seems like he's at the size he needs to be to play safety. Bulked up there from his transition from cornerback to that back end. As far as on the field stuff, we're going to see it throughout the preseason. Didn't necessarily get a ton out of there today, but this is a guy who's already familiar with Florida State's defensive scheme. He was able to have that spring with Coach Surtain prior to transferring to Colorado, which, he had a pretty solid season with the Buffaloes last year. A senior, coming back to Tallahassee. I think he wants to make an impact, and, we're going to see how this competition goes over the next few weeks. Devontae Brown has really settled in since spring practice, brings a good veteran presence to that safety room with his experience playing at UCF and Miami. He's seen a lot during his college days. And Conrad Hussey, all the potential in the world, and just comes with the consistency. And if he puts it together, no matter who ends up being the starter, you're going to have a really solid group of safeties back there.
The vibe I was getting from our NoleGameday Discord and just some things that I was reading up on and your report as well is that this defensive back room was really physical just starting off in day one. Don't have pads on or anything here, but it seemed like definitely in the cornerback room specifically, Azari Thomas, Ventrell Cypress, these guys were doing a really physical job and doing a good job. And coverage, it seemed like Norvell actually commented on it after practice, saying just the confidence, understanding, really taking a next level approach to the finest of details. Talking about Azari Thomas here, his skills has changed. They've gotten better. Our guys, they work really hard in the offseason. And like I was saying before, the opening part of this show, Azari Thomas has been one of those players that has put in a lot of work this offseason and training. What do you see from the cornerback room here? Because I think for some of us, maybe I wouldn't say it was an overall letdown season from Cypress. Maybe we thought there would be more interceptions made, more takeaways there from Cypress on his end. And then you look over to Azari Thomas here. He's going to be a starter in this defense for Florida State in 2024. These two seem to have started off fall camp in a nice way day one.
Yeah, I really like what we saw out of that that cornerback duo on Wednesday. Both of them obviously taking on bigger roles going into 2024. Ventrell, he was a starter last year, but I think this was more, continuing to grow into this scheme at Florida State, which was a lot different than what he played at Virginia for majority of his college career. And then also, becoming a little bit more of a leader in that locker room. And, AZ has just made that complete jump, it feels like, to where he's in that rising star territory and just needs to go out and prove it on the field in 2024, because in practice, he's locking guys down. Whenever someone does beat AZ in a rep, it feels like they've got to earn that win. I mean, they've got to work for everything that they're going to get.
Nothing comes easy.
No, whenever Thomas is matched up against them, and I think it's going to be really good for Hakeem Williams and Kentron to be facing off against him constantly over the next couple of weeks. Only going to make both sides better. And then with Cypress, just like I was saying with the scheme stuff earlier, it feels like he's settled in. He's comfortable with the scheme now. He knows what he needs to do. He's not thinking anymore. He's just reacting and going out there and making the play. And I mean, he might not have the flashiest game, but he was still really solid for Florida State a year ago, going back and looking back at it. And then today, just making some plays around the ball, getting out there for a deflection on DJ on a play that he was able to read and then come up and, prevent the completion. So I think both of those guys are going to be really good for FSU and all conference talents in 2024. But that's a really good cornerback duo to have, especially when you think about what they have at safety as well.
Mm-hmm. It's actually crazy how much Azari Thomas physical build looks like Jalen Ramsey. It just freaks me out sometimes, just how similar those two look like. And then there was also a video you had of Ventrell walking in as well. seemed like they put on. Oh, we got a new sleeve from Fintrell too. I just noticed the other things. I don't know. I noticed everything, but got a sleeve on for Fintrell. We're gonna need some close videos, D-Lou, when you get a chance of that. Maybe we'll get Tommy on that. Tommy, that's gonna be his job. It'll probably take a week or so to get that video trimmed up so close onto his arm, but that's a new sleeve for Fintrell. I wonder what it is.
We might have got a shot
massive
at
sleeve.
We might have a clip of it from the press conference, but I'll have to look back.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder what it is though. But yeah, a good start to fall camp from those two guys.
Yeah.
I want to go over to. There's a question in the chat, D-Lou, and we're going to talk some Blake Nicholson here. We're going to go over to linebacker, but someone that has definitely put on some size in the last 6 months so quickly as Blake Nicholson here. What did you see from him size-wise, and then also to just out on the field and coverage, run game, etc.?
Yeah, he's a legit 6'3", 225 pounds. Feels like he's added some really good weight to his frame this offseason, which I mean is exactly what the Seminoles wanted to see. You know, he was a little bit small last year, came in with kind of a thinner frame, and some of that Florida State needed to bulk up, and they've started. They're at the groundwork of doing that. You know, it's going to be a multi-year process to get him to his quote unquote final form, but the early returns, I mean, really positive. For Blake Nicholson. I mean, you can see it right there. He looks like he's in really good shape. And with that added weight, I mean, he was still moving around really well today, you know, flashing that athleticism. And he's going to give himself a chance to compete for potentially a starting job and at the very minimum, a role in that rotation.
And then another thing, I want to stay in the linebacker room. We already talked about him a little bit earlier, but Cam Riley, and if you want to mention any other linebackers as well, feel free to. If it's not worth mentioning, don't do it. We'll probably talk about them in next week's episode. But we're only here to really talk about people that stood out in the first day of fall camp. But we do need to talk some more about Cam Riley because that dude is huge. And we've been talking about how they're going to try to utilize him in this defense with Adam Fuller.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I just feel like he moves better than I expected. You know, and also physically, I mean, his makeup, I was expecting him to be a little bit thicker, like a defensive lineman, but he's got that linebacker build that Florida State is looking for. And, you know, he brings immense size to the position, taller than any linebacker on the roster. And it's going to be really intriguing to kind of see where exactly he fits in over the next couple of weeks. You know, today was day one. He's picking up that scheme and getting used to things out on the practice field. I want to see what he's able to do once the pads come on, because I think that's where a guy like Cam Riley, that's where he's really going to shine. I mean, helmets and shorts are one thing. Let that guy hit someone.
Yeah, there's positions like I don't even want to really go to the trenches with offensive line and defensive line and edge rusher and linebacker.
It's tough.
Like that. Those are like position groups we don't need to be talking about on the first day until we get pads on. Like any head coach will tell you that. Like we just talked to Todd Bowles today. He doesn't want to talk anything trenches until pads come on. And now finally, after OTAs, rookie minicamp, mandatory minicamp, they're going to have to put on some shells here this upcoming weekend here in Tampa. That's when it actually matters when we talk about those position groups. That's probably all we'll be talking about here once Florida State gets those shells on, which that will probably be, let's see, it's Wednesday now. Got practice tomorrow. Sometime this weekend.
Yeah, I'm thinking Friday or definitely whenever they get back on the field on Sunday.
Okay. Yeah. God, we might just need to do an instant reaction to pads being on. That might just be worth it right there. What else from the defensive side would you like to note on here? Because I feel like pointing out the main things, you know, we've got a lot to talk about the next few weeks, but just in case we're missing anything else on the defensive side of the ball for Florida State, I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm looking at that nickel position. Knowles was in there. Almost had an interception. That's going to be a battle that we're going to be watching this upcoming camp. He lost Greedy Vance. He's over there with the USC, beginning camp for Lincoln Riley on the West Coast. So now you're looking at Earl Little Jr., Alabama transfer, and, you know, a guy that's a veteran in this group with Kevin Knowles. Seemed like he put himself in the right position today to grab an interception. Goes right in between his hands, which sucks. But, you know, what do you see from those two guys? I feel like that's a battle we're going to be watching the next couple of weeks.
I didn't get a ton of observations on those two today. I mean, just really the thing I noted on Knowles where he was able to get in position, potentially get a pick, but unfortunately was able to drop it. But I mean, those are going to be two guys that I'm continuing to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks. Because like you said, I mean, this is still a position battle. You got a guy who's played a lot of football at Florida State and Kevin Knowles, and then also someone who's trying to reach their potential in Earl Little Jr. And I mean, man, when he realizes that potential, like at times we saw in the spring, it can be really fun. And he can pull down some picks, get some pass deflections, really show off that athleticism that made him one of the top prospects in his respective class back in the day. And that's going to be an important position for Florida State, obviously, with Jarian Jones moving on to the NFL level. He was elite for Florida State last year at nickel, and they're hopeful that Earl Little Jr. Kevin Knowles can eventually grow to be that productive. And I think it's not exactly the same as when you look at the safety room with Devontae Brown and Conrad Hussey, but it's a similar concept where maybe someone like Kevin Knowles, with his experience in this defense and everything, he can offer a little bit of a higher floor. But if Earl Little Jr. figures everything out, I mean, that ceiling is going to be too immense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a great one for you, D-Lou, the kicking game.
I watch that.
Oh, yeah. That's like the number one thing outside of long snapping, of course. But the kicking game here, Ryan Fitzgerald actually has someone behind him, too, to give him a little bit of, some, in quote, competition. But, Ryan's solidified starter this upcoming season. But still, it's nice to have someone in the room there to push you a little bit. But how'd Ryan look out there today?
Not as lonely as he looked in the spring without anyone to kick
guy.
footballs with. But, now he's finally got true freshman Jake Weinberg, who Florida State signed in this 2024 class, one of the top prep kickers in the country, making it over to Tallahassee to begin his career. And, to start off, it's not really a competition. Obviously, Fitzgerald going to be FSU starter this year, and Weinberg, potentially, probably the kicker of the future. But to start things off, Fitzgerald in the special teams portion of practice connected from 34 and 40 yards out. Weinberg wide left from 34 yards out, but then came back and hit the deeper one from 40 yards out. And then also during the special teams portion, thought Alex Mastermano absolutely booting that thing. And then you saw some really good kicks from Mac Chiumento as well. And I think it's important to continue to follow some of these younger kickers, throughout the preseason and throughout the fall as well, because after this year, Ryan Fitzgerald and Alex Mastermano are going to move on. And these two guys who we're talking about behind them at those respective positions could eventually end up being their replacements.
Mm-hmm. Eric's in here asking, when is Hakeem Williams going to pop? Who knows? I don't think we'll see. I don't think he's much of a fall camp, spring camp kind of guy to where, oh my goodness, he's making plays here and there like that. He's going back to maybe like a guy like Vondravius Jacobs, who was doing that kind of throughout the camp that he was at. And his early career and quick career at Florida State. But, I think that's more of a game type kind of pop that you're going to see from Hakeem Williams. You saw it last year and his touchdown that he made. That's where he makes those plays. It might not just be in the practice fields, and that happens for a lot of players. Like I said, you look over at Trey Benson and Lawrence Toafili. We don't talk so much of crazy plays being made in practices just because these guys, they're not going to get dinged up. They're not going to get tackled or anything. But that's just my take there on Hakeem Williams. There's another question here on CW saying, will Payne go for more sacks this year, or is he going to continue to bat down passes? I'll take both. I love a good batting down passes kind of defensive end. I go to Pittsburgh Steelers, TJ Watt. Give me a batted down pass all day and every week. Definitely when it's on third down, sign me up, please. I love me some batted down passes, but, that's something we're going to be watching once the pads come on, the edge rush. And that edge rush position, will be diving a lot more deeper into that once those shells come on this weekend.
He did get a sack today, though. I will note. Okay. No batted down passes. So right now I'm leaning towards sacks.
Yeah, leaning towards sacks right here. I guess we're going to have to do a counter now on batted passes and sacks for Pat Payne to add on with your kicking tally for Ryan Fitzgerald.
Yeah. I was just saying, I think last year, it was some of that was a calculated decision for Patrick Payton to make an impact on rushing the passer, especially with Jared Verse on the other side, doing his part to help Florida State on passing downs. This season, he's that guy. He's got to be the one getting into the backfield, wreaking that havoc. I think we're going to see a renewed focus on, getting back there and putting the quarterback on the ground, not having to worry about batting down a pass because you got the quarterback and you just put him on his ass.
Yep, exactly. So can't wait to talk more trenches. It's going to happen when those pads come on. Anything else before we move into some quick basketball updates from VZ before we wrap up this week's show? You're excited about getting up early and get back out there. That's what you were telling us in the production meeting. You said that you have so much energy and that you are ready to get up early again and run it back.
I'm so excited.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal. You get to go to a football practice where I'm gonna put you in a bad spot, where hundreds of thousands of FSU fans would kill to be in your spot, Dustin Lewis.
I just said that I'm so happy.
Okay, all right. It sounded sarcastic, but make sure y'all tweet him.
I could watch another practice right now.
Okay. Yeah, right. All right. Let's go over to some basketball real quick to wrap up this week's show. We're gonna have tons of updates. Dustin will always have a practice observations going out every practice. So I know we only do this show weekly, but Dustin will have updates for you guys after practice every time throughout fall camp. So make sure you guys stay tuned to NoleGameday.com. VZ, Leonard Hamilton, he's added on to this roster. It's his last season. Not confirmed.
Maybe.
I know, not confirmed. Not confirmed. Leonard Hamilton extension? Get the article ready? No, but what happened? What's the news? What's the news cycle over there on the basketball court?
For once, we've had a busy and productive week on the basketball front. We actually have a finalized 13-man roster. Can you tell by my excitement how excited I am? I'm so excited.
You are.
We'll start with Monday's news, which this had been rumored for a few months now. That Alir Malouk, blue chip commit for the 2025 class. He reclassified to the 2024 class and will be joining Florida State for this upcoming season. 6'10", 180-pound forward, may play some 5 for Florida State this season. He was a top 70 recruit in the 2025 class. We'll see what he looks like in the 24 class once those rankings are finalized. But had long been rumored, finally became official this week. It's going to be an interesting addition to this team. Kind of has a similar skill set to Taylor Ball-Bowen. I know we talked about him when he committed, months ago. But he is a good player, just needs to continue adding to his skill set. I think he's a little bit further ahead than where Taylor Ball-Bowen was coming into Florida State. Just have to see if it translates to the court. And then today's news, another long speculated rumor is that Florida State had a mystery European that they're going to have coming on this roster. Didn't know who it was. And finally today they announced that they had signed Anastasios Rozakis from Greece. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that correctly. I watched enough film, so hopefully I got that right. 6'6", 6'7", kind of depends on where you look. Very long, really long arms. Not really a vertical athlete, but he's great instinctual like a lot of European players are. And he could shoot the peel off the basketball. Shot 42% during Eurobasket this year on 6 attempts per game. Really quick trigger. Has a lot of confidence in his shot. For what Florida State's maybe losing in terms of top end talent, they've really added in shooting this offseason with Rozakis, Jerry Dane from Hampton, Daquan Davis is an incoming freshman. Even Boston Holt from South Dakota can shoot pretty well. They've added a lot of shooting to this roster. We'll see if it's enough for them to make up for, losing guys like Cam Corrin and Jalen Moore and some of these other guys. But definitely an interesting addition, I think is the best way to put it. I still don't love Florida State's guard rotation. And now they have, I think, 8 guys that can play either the 3 or the 4. So definitely going to be an interesting roster with a lot of length and a lot of shooting. Whether it translates to success for what could be Leonard Hamilton's last season, who knows? I have absolutely no idea how this roster is going to play. It can't be worse than 2 years ago. I'm kind of saying that just to will it? It can't be worse than 2 years ago. That's all I ask. I can't deal with another one of those years.
Knock on wood. But I just want to hear the PA announcer pronounce that full name.
I don't think it's bad. Anastasios Rozakis. It's not bad.
Anastasios Rozakis.
Rozakis.
I don't know. Rojakis?
Rozakis. Yeah.
Rozakis. Okay.
It's not bad. It's a lot better than some of these other Greek names. Like it took me 4 years to learn how to pronounce Antetokounmpo correctly, and I still don't think I pronounced it correctly.
Yeah, no, don't even get that near me.
I think that one's easier.
Yeah, Dustin, go ahead.
Is it?
Say that again, VZ, and let Dustin do it. Say that again.
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, you might have gotten there. But it still took me a few years to get that correctly. Rozakis is a lot easier.
Yeah, that is a lot easier.
Rozakis.
It's like 3 less syllables.
Beetlejuice.
This is where we're at when we get into basketball talk.
Yeah, we got to do something to put a smile on our face because basketball hasn't been doing it for us a lot recently.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll turn around and things will be a lot better. But we thank God for fall camp. Ladies and gentlemen, thank God. We're back. It feels so good. God, I'm so happy. We're at practices out there in the heat. I don't care. I'm just there to see some balls being thrown, some thick thighs, some big old hamstrings, good quads.
Careful.
That's where we're at. We're at football practice. I just want the pads on. I've been tired of seeing no pads. I want to see some hits. I want to see some popped. I want to see it all. We're at football season. I'm so tired of all this basketball. I watch too much basketball. Shout out to the Dallas Mavericks, but I want to see some football. So we're a
month away from the Georgia Tech game. We're close.
Yep. We are damn close. Super excited. Got a lot of travel plans this upcoming season. The schedule is getting close. My birthday's next month. Best month of the year is in August. I'm in a good mood, baby. I'm in a good mood. We'll be live next Wednesday, recapping a handful of practices. So make sure you're tuned in for next week's show because we are going to have a lot of practices to recap. And then Dustin too, next month, you're heading over to Jacksonville. Tommy's going to go with you over there too, as well. And going to jump over there and we'll have a show. You'll be in Duval for that one as well, right?
Yep.
Are you coming back? Yeah. Yeah.
No, we're coming back on Thursday. So Wednesday night, I'll be there ready to do the podcast.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome.
Hopefully the weather's not as bad for you as it was for me in Jacksonville last week.
Oh, I'm going to my favorite UNF field, and every year it seems like it takes a sacrificial lamb. So we'll see what happens this time around.
Yeah,
it's rough out there in Jacksonville, man.
What do you mean? What's going on in Jacksonville?
Just like the field they practice on at UNF. I mean, you know how it is. Logan's been out there. It's just a field of grass.
I know.
It sucks, and they're in dorms. Like I feel bad for the players.
I am well aware.
They send the equipment guys out there to paint the field themselves and set up temporary goalposts. I mean, it's an operation, that's for sure.
I still don't know why. Well, I guess JU doesn't have a football team anymore, but I feel like they still have a football field they could use.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike's just trying to make it hard on them.
Yeah, probably. Yep.
I forgot to mention too, D-Lou's birthday is just a few days before mine as well. So August is just
that was nice.
Yeah, no, I thought I'd mention that. You could have said, "Hey, also my birthday's there," but that's me. I'm the good friend here and saying,
I figured you didn't give a shit.
No, I do care.
I don't. So.
Oh, damn, Jesus Christ. Dang, man. Jeez.
I'm only turning 30 next month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you still got your degree after me. That's crazy.
Jeez, VZ's just over here slashing D-Lou. Poor D-Lou. Unbelievable. Well, he deserves it after being not appreciative of going to football practices.
Yeah, come on, man.
I said that I was happy. How much happier can I be? I'm not someone who smiles a lot. I don't have a lot to be happy about.
Yeah, you're not a big morning guy, but you are actually waking up and going to games. You are not like mean in the morning. You just don't like getting up early. Like I don't mind it. Like I've good.
I wouldn't say I'm nice.
You're not bad. You're not terrible, but you just got to have a few things that you take medically that will help you feel better. So
I do.
That's what, All right, football season's here, baby. We're in a good mood. We'll be back here next Wednesday. I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's week. As always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit the like button. Get the party started. Dustin's getting 30. He's going to be dirty 30.
What did you say? Dirty 30?
Is it 30 dirty? It's dirty 30. Yeah, you're having your dirty 30. It's going to get real dirty. It's going to get real dirty.
Let's end the
All
show.
right, let's get out of here. Enjoy the rest of y'all's weekend. See you next week. Peace.